Welcome to part 3, where we finally reach the end. We can finally stop talking about this garbage movie. But we need to cover a couple more things before we hit the conclusion. So let's start with the biggest problem with Cars. So a lot of you have probably watched my scene review by now, and you'll know that one of my biggest problems, actually the first problem I had with the movie in the video, was why were the characters animals? What purpose did that serve to the film, to the narrative, to anything really? And this movie has the same problems. The characters have no reason for being cars. Now, where have we seen this before? I mean, really think about it. If you were to take all the cars in Cars and made them humans, would the story really change all that much?
No.
Once again, looking back at Zootopia, if you don't make them animals, the movie just doesn't work. Them being animals is integral to the plot, to the stories, to the theme, to everything in the movie. Them being animals is the movie. To better illustrate my point, I'm going to summarize the entire Cars storyline, and if you were to say this whole storyline to a person who didn't know about the movie and didn't know the name of the movie, they probably wouldn't even know that you were talking about sentient living cars. They would have thought you were talking about humans. Are you ready? A young hotshot racer named Lightning McQueen is on his way to winning the Piston Cup.
He did what in his cup?
When all of a sudden he finds himself in a three-way tie for it. So him and the two other racers have to travel across the country to California for a three-way tie race. But on our way to California, our protagonist Lightning McQueen here finds a way to get lost, and then he finds himself in this podunk little town that's basically hillbilly hell. He accidentally breaks the road, so he's required to go and fix the entire road. By the time he fixes the entire road, while it has been like pulling teeth, he eventually learns that the town has a little bit more heart and soul into it. And he also learns that a former racing legend named Doc Hudson resides there as well. And through the entire movie, he learns to not be such a selfish guy and think about having friends. He all around becomes a better person by the end of the movie, and it shows when he gets to the final race. Instead of just winning the race, he instead goes back and helps the old legend who crashed finish his last race, because he didn't want him to be like Doc Hudson and not be able to finish his final race. Now, notice how when I described the entire film to you, notice how at no point did I ever have to say that they are living cars, and I never actually implied it at all either. You can tell this entire story without mentioning that they are sentient cars. And that's the big problem here. The only reason why they are cars is so that they can sell toys to kids. While I do think that the Cars art style is really nice to the eye, so it's not as bad as Sane's art style and choices for them being animals, I will say that it's all a sleazy marketing gimmick. They're only making them cars so kids will buy their toys and merchandising. That's it. It's not integral to the movie, it's not integral to the plot or to the characters, it's just there to make a profit. Don't be fooled by it. You know, I remember in part 1, I started out the review by saying that I thought that this movie was mediocre, but after all I've been through, all the analysis and really rewatching it multiple times, I have to say, it's complete garbage. It's not even okay. It's got way more bad than good. Only 2 characters are really good at all. The rest are just filler characters that are not great. Now, many have argued, and still argue to this day, that I got that entire section of the video wrong. That they're not supposed to be really dynamic characters because they are stock characters. While this is true, for Mater and Sally, it's completely unexcusable because they were supposed to be main characters who were supposed to go through some semblance of change. So I'm not buying that. I also stand by my statement that Chick Hicks is only a halfway decent villain and only fulfills half of the villain role. And while most of the characters at Radiator Springs are supposed to be stock filler characters, I also have to mention that they're not good stock filler characters. If a character is not going to be extremely dynamic and is not going to go through change or have some other purpose to the narrative. If they're just there to being there, they gotta have something that makes them either useful to the plot or something unique about them and makes them, have a reason for being here. I didn't find any of the characters at Radiator Springs funny. I did not found none of them entertaining. And like I've said, they have no bearing on the plot whatsoever. So in the end, who gives a shit?
Not me!
Fuck these characters. They're awful. The plot is dumb and it requires way too much suspension of disbelief. Okay, I understand that you might be saying to yourself, it's a kid's movie, Film Physician. It's not supposed to be realistic. I never said I was looking for 100% realism in this movie. I'm just saying that they bent the rules of reality too far in this extremely human-like world to the point where it just breaks my immersion. It disconnects me from the movie when I'm like, this is no way, in kids' film or not, that this would happen. You can have all the great writing in the world, but if your screenwriter and director doesn't know how to execute those ideas put forth by the writer, you're not going to have a good movie. The way something becomes to be, how a movie is set up, how a conflict is set up, is extremely important. It has to feel natural, and it has to feel like it is somewhat plausible. It has to have some bearing on the story, and it cannot just be a bunch of unfortunate events for no reason. The characters, pointless. The plot, boring. The writing and screenwriting, fucking awful. And if that's not enough for you, here's the nail in the coffin. A very good YouTuber of the name of Schafrillas Productions did a review on Cars, and he, I think, summarized perfectly how the cars in Cars don't really need to be cars, when he says this.
Cars, at its core, is fundamentally broken.
There you have it in a nutshell, folks. That's really what this all comes back to. The movie, like Schafrillas just said, is fundamentally broken at its core, because the cars in Cars have no reason for being cars. Everything else is the byproduct of that, because when you build a house, you have to have a strong foundation. Once again, I'll compare this movie to Zootopia. Zootopia had a fundamental concept that really they could build off of. It was a very simple, clear concept. Stereotypes. It's very easy what the message is. The world building, the writing, the characters, the plot, everything after that is built off of that one concept of this world. Is stereotypes. It's clear and it's something that you can build off of. However, for Cars, we do not have that. There's no building blocks. At its core, when you look at the movie, Cars is fundamentally flawed because the cars in Cars have no reason for being cars. The characters in Zootopia being animals is, like I'll say again, is clearly connected to the plot of the movie. The plot of the movie and, the central concept of the movie are tied in together, and them being animals, it makes sense. But in Cars, it doesn't. The main theme and messages of the movie, like enjoying the simpler things in life and not being such an asshole, that is, them being cars does not connect that at all. It's just a big disconnect, and it's terrible. Now, once again, I need to stress, I'm not trying to make you feel bad for liking this movie. If you truly like this movie, I'm not saying stop liking it. I'm not saying that you're dumb for liking the movie, and I'm not saying anything like that. What I'm trying to get out with this review is to explain to people why I don't like the movie. Because when you say you don't like a movie like Cars or Lion King or something like that, a movie that's very popular, you gotta give some background information to why you don't like it. Otherwise, people just look at you like you're crazy, and you're like, you don't like this classic film that we all love as children? Or we all love as adults? You gotta give some explanation, and that's what I was doing with this review. I was explaining in great detail why I have such distaste for the movie, and how when you look at the movie from a technical standpoint, it is not a classic. It is not as good as the other Pixar movies. You can personally love this movie, and I hope that you don't stop loving this movie if you do. But, like I said, don't ever try to come up and tell me that this is one of the best Pixar movies out there. It's not. Pixar has had way better works of art that they have created, and this is not one of them. Don't ever try to tell me that Cars is as good as movies like Up, Monsters Incorporated, Incredibles, or Ratatouille. It doesn't belong anywhere near there. It belongs on the B list.